his trophy room, something that caught the eye of at least one of his former teammates. Check out this tweet from Shaq. He says, "Congrats to Kobe, first Oscar. That's big, bro. Proud of you. Big honor for you and your family. I'm jealous."
Well, Shaq's got a Grammy, I believe. Kobe now has an Oscar, which is obviously higher in the award hierarchy. I think Oscar might be the highest in all of the award hierarchy. And if you watched it, I don't know if people were watching when he got the award, he almost teared up a couple times. This seemed to be really overwhelming for him.
It is a huge deal. And the story, just the whole creativeness to it, as far as what basketball has meant to him, and put it to words like, congratulations, tremendous, tremendous honor. Shaq was close in chips, though. He was close to an Oscar.
What about Shazam?
No chance.
Shazam?
Matter of fact, they should have made him disappear.
That's how he knew the plot. Time now for some stories to start your morning. Kevin Durant says he wants to stick around with the Warriors. He says, quote, "I do know that I want to be here. I love playing here." Nick, you buying that Durant will be a Warrior for a very long time?
Yeah, as long as a very long time, we're talking about at least the next 4 years. Yes, I expect that KD this offseason will sign the Supermax extension, 4 years with a player option for year 5. I mean, he's not going to go anywhere. Even if the Warriors don't win the title, he's not going to go bounce to a different team. So, yes, I do believe Kevin Durant will be in the Bay Area, and he's doing amazing things with the tech community and with the business community in the Bay Area. I don't think he wants to leave.
Yeah, life will probably never be better, and life will never be easier for him over the next 4 years if he decides to sign that max contract. I'm glad that he is going to stay there. That should be the only conversation. This is the best Kevin Durant that we've seen, offensively and defensively, and he wants to play for a winner. He wants to play for championships, so he needs to stay in Golden State.
Moving on to the NFL, John Elway and the Broncos have reportedly discussed trading with the Browns for that #1 overall pick. According to reports, the deal is very dependent on where Kirk Cousins end up. What do you think, Nick? Good idea for the Broncos?
I think it's a great idea for the Broncos. If they've identified the quarterback they want, they are afraid he will not be there at #5. If you want to package this year's #1, next year's #1, and maybe Aqib Talib, that maybe could get the deal done if you were Denver and you go get your quarterback. It's not a deal I would do if I were Cleveland. If I'm Cleveland, I have to have a quarterback. I haven't had one in 30 years. I'm taking one at #1, but I don't mind Denver at least considering trying to move up to get their guy.
I'm calling BS on this one. I believe because John Elway has made 3 bad decisions as far as his quarterback. Denver doesn't have a quarterback, and the reason why they're drafting #5 is because of John Elway's decisions. Cleveland has missed out on the last 2 drafts in drafting a quarterback. Now, why would Cleveland trade with a team that wants a quarterback? So I'm just calling BS. John Elway's just trying to stay in the news so the people say, well, I tried to trade with him. They just wouldn't trade with me.
You think Cleveland's just trying to figure out who Elway wants so they know not to draft him?
No, I don't. I think it's far more complicated than that.
Baker Mayfield, short in height, not short in confidence. You saw what I did there with that?
It's great play on words.
Thank you. I played. He says if
made the read shorter. That
anyone is going to turn around the Cleveland Browns, it's going to be him. This is about as short as I can make it. CC, can Mayfield do it? Just answer. Because
quick and short.
Quick and short.
Yeah.
Just got to the end of the
believe in Baker. I believe he also has the confidence. Every quarterback that's in this year's draft, I don't believe can play in Cleveland, either from arm strength or by personality. I believe Baker is a take-charge guy. I believe he also will be successful in the NFL. I believe in his skill set that it is transferable from the Big 12 at Oklahoma to the NFL.
Baker also smart. He knows he is, unlike Darnold, unlike Rosen, he's the quarterback that's in the top group that some teams are just going to say, we don't have a first-round grade on him because of his size and because of the conference he played in. So he needs to be as open to going anywhere as any quarterback out there. He has said all the right things since finishing up in college. Like, he has said the right things. He has owned some of his mistakes head on, and he seems to want to take on the challenge of whomever wants to draft him. So Baker's handled this part of the draft process very well.
All right, finally, the feel-good story of the Combine. Central Florida linebacker Shaq Griffin. He ran the fastest 40 for a linebacker since 2003. He put up 20 reps right there on the bench press. And, oh, by the way, he has one hand. He lost the other to a congenital birth defect when he was 4 years old. Cece, how impressed were you with Griffin's performance at the Combine?
Very impressed with everything. How explosive he was, how strong he was. I know the story. I followed UCF, Central Florida football, for a long period of time. But to say he's the fastest linebacker we've seen in the NFL in 15 years, I think that is the most phenomenal part about it. Now, what it does is it helps explain what the tape. So when you see him on tape, you see him explode. You see him get up on players. You see him rush the quarterback. You see, wow, I mean, this guy's quick. But you see at the combine, he's quick and he's fast. He can play in space. He's had a great career. Not a good year, not a good weekend at the combine. So his tape matches up now with his overall explosiveness and his ability to play football. So he should get drafted high. And if he doesn't, people have openly just discriminated against him because he only has one hand.
Here's the thing with him only having the one hand. It has not affected him negatively in his football playing ability at all. Like, he's Conference Player of the Year. He's the best player on the only undefeated team in the country. He's the MVP of the Peach Bowl against elite competition.
Now, I have to disagree with you. A person playing with one hand is less effective than someone playing with two. Even though he reached that, if he had two hands, he would be even that much better. That's the only reason why he's not a top 25 pick.
Sure. Okay, that's a more fair way to
when you look at when you look at grip pressure, when you look at them keep defenders off of you, like, yeah, he's been able to do that despite having a limitation.
That's totally fair. That's probably a better way to put it. My point is, despite having the one hand, he has been an effective, a highly effective football player at every level. And the reason that I was so anxious for him going into the combine is I think he's a guy that teams, it would be easy for them to just say, cross him off the draft board. And if he had ran what was an average time for linebackers, that would be a reason. Okay, so he's not that fast, and he's not going to be able to reach up and get tipped balls or get interceptions. The strength, to me, though, is what is remarkable. Because to do 20 reps at 225, that's good for the position for anybody. But to be able to build up that strength, when obviously he can't do curls the way regular guys can.
Right,
he can't do bench press the way regular guys can. At least it's harder for him to train for it. It is an amazing level of fortitude that he must have been showing the last 20 years.
And the bench press speaks to his overall ability to build a press weight. Now, as a defensive end or a linebacker, one of the things you worry about, if he engages with an offensive lineman, are they able to grab him? Now, for me, what I do is put him at left defensive end. I have his right arm free, which is his full hand, and keep where he doesn't have a hand on the outside. I would have him to be a specialist rusher starting out and also a special teams player. Like, you can't teach that type of speed. You put that type of speed on special teams, that's where I believe he can still be special as a player, as he's able to learn the game and everything before I blitz him from other positions. But that's what I would do. I'd put him on the left side where he can engage an offensive lineman. He shows you in the bench press that he can handle, because bench pressing 225 20 times, it tells you his maximum strength is about 350 pounds. That's about as big as an offensive tackle is going to be. So I believe that will transfer over. His ability to be able to play in space, his ability to be able to tackle people, and being an emotional leader. That's the way he was at UCF. I believe that transfers over to an NFL locker room.
And if I may, just for a moment, I don't know if sentimental is the right word, but think about what this means for young people, kids, and I mean real young people that have some type of disability, that have some type of thing that was totally beyond their control, that say, I love sports, I always want to play sports, but it's not for me, I guess. See, this guy who's going to make the NFL, going to be drafted into the best league in the world, when he doesn't have a hand, for the young people out there that want to play sports and feel like, I can't, one leg short than the other, or I was born like this, it's an amazing story.
I had a kid who grew up in my neighborhood. His name was Jerome. He couldn't hear. He was deaf. And through me being involved in Boy Scouts, I learned sign language. So when he signed up for football, he could only play on my team because he was my friend from my neighborhood and because I knew some sign language. But after I had moved on, it was hard for him. He went to the School of the Deaf there in Cincinnati and was able to play high school football. But he was limited because there was only a few kids who knew sign language and very few coaches that allowed him to play. So seeing a story like this and what it does for young people, yes, there is no obstacle that can't be overcome. And it's great to see.
It's great.
All right, good
So
stuff.
great.
Back to the NBA now, and what a game between the Rockets and the Celtics Saturday night. Both teams wanted it. Rockets walked away with it, picking up their 15th win in a row, securing a league best 49-13 record. And as good as they are, they're still only a half a game up on the Golden State Warriors, who themselves keep winning. They're winners of 5 in a row. Nick, can the Rockets continue their success through the postseason?
I don't see any reason why not. They've got the league MVP. They've got one of the greatest point guards ever in Chris Paul. They've got a coach who was way ahead of his time with the 7 seconds or less Suns, and now he has a team that has the personnel and the interest in playing defense also. Like, the one knock on the Rockets is they haven't done it before, and we feel like we hear a lot about Harden, Chris Paul, and Mike D'Antoni failing in the playoffs. Well, Chris Paul, though, his regular season career averages are 19, 5, and 10. His playoff averages are 21, 5, and 10. James Harden, since he came to the Rockets, gives you 27, 5, and 7 in the playoffs, and the Rockets have played to their seed every year he's been there. We remember Game 6 against the Spurs last year when I believe he was concussed, but leading up to Game 6 against the Spurs, he was killing it in that series. The best player on the court. Like, I think the three people most closely correlated with the Rockets, the two best players and their coach, have an unfair reputation, and what they've done throughout this regular season has been overwhelming. So, yeah, I believe in them. I understand they will be the underdogs to the Warriors, but not heavy underdogs. I believe in this Rockets.
Most of the time, your reputation is based on what your record is. If you look at D'Antoni, what's his record? That means his reputation would be worthy then of his record. If you look at Harden, what has been his record, then I believe in his reputation as far as he can't finish in the postseason. That Chris Paul, it's a little tricky because he's played well, but he's also been hurt. He's been on teams that have underachieved. So the best player typically is going to get that burden or that responsibility. So my thing is James Harden, he's the MVP of the NBA right now. He must play like an MVP in the postseason for them to continue this. I'm not going to put as much pressure on the coach, but what's going on with Chris Paul and Harden, they must play well. Harden must play well, and Chris Paul must be healthy. If he's healthy and Harden does his end, I believe, yes, they can continue this, but there are real questions coming down the stretch. Will they keep this same style? Once you get into the playoffs where you can't get up and down, it becomes more half court. Joe Johnson, who they've just added, how much of an asset is he coming down? Or is he like the black hole? The black hole, once he gets the ball stops moving. Him and the coach do have history, but does he make them better? But if they don't win, the coach, Harden, the MVP, and Chris Paul, a Hall of Fame player, they will be blamed on their lack of postseason success.
This team has been very good about changing it up, mixing it up, how they play, the style they play, the pace at which they play, the amount of points they need to put up, when they turn on their defense or not.
And that's the reason why it's probably more realistic. This is the best team that Houston's had. It's the best opportunity that Harden's had, even when he was in OKC.
No doubt.
And they lost to. So those things that you speak to, Jenna, I believe the reason why it's a real question of can Houston win their first NBA champion since Olajuwon left? Yes, because of that versatility that they have now.
And James Harden's the best teammate Chris Paul has ever had by a wide margin.
Yes.
Like, with no disrespect to Blake Griffin. Blake Griffin was
But they're not in the same class.
They're not in the same class. Not nearly as where Harden is right now. You're talking about varying it up. Their first 14-game winning streak, they were playing at one of the 5 fastest paces in the league. This 15-game winning streak, they are playing at one of the 5 slowest paces in the league. The defense, forget being top 10, it's creeping towards the top 5. I told you before, I'll say it again. According to Basketball Reference, they have the #1 offense in the history of professional basketball. And lastly, in games where their big three play, Chris Paul, James Harden, and Clint Capella, they're kind of forgotten center. They are 32-1. So if Chris Paul's healthy, and if James Harden is who I believe he is, and Clint Capella keeps this up, of course they can continue this into the postseason.
So why is this always a conversation or a topic that comes up with this team when a lot of these guys playing together are new? I mean, why do they have this reputation?
It's the same question we had about this show, Jenna, because we had never done it. And now that we've done it, once you've done it, then you're not surprising people. They have not done it together. And also, Golden State is in the West.
Everyone's got Golden State derangement complex to a degree, and for good reason. Like, when you have the most talented team ever as a roadblock in front of you, then we're going to look for reasons you can't get it done.
All right, coming up, is it starting to look like Lonzo Ball will live up to the hype? We'll talk about that next on First Things First.
Lonzo, killing it.